clearly people are grappling with what distribution means, and we could spend hours talking about that, but forgotten sometimes is a discussion about how we preserve this notion of cinema. But I think at the same time we're preserving cinema, we're being forced to redefine it. Because if we go on the auteurs, which is a terrific site, theauteurs.com, not only can we rate films we've all seen at festivals, but we can watch them on our computer screen. And the movies that are showing on the auteurs are classics. These are cinematic classics. And it really makes me wonder how we will define and continue to define, or how the definition of cinema will evolve over the next decade.
Part of our marketing strategy that's evolved really in the last few years, we every week we go through a process where we decide what films we're going to be showing in the short-term and long-term future. And part of that decision is based on what sort of micro networks do we already have available to the theater, and do we feel that we can promote that film to an audience that we have depth and outreach into. And if we don't have any depth, or we don't know how to reach that audience, we generally just don't play that film. And so one of the things that you could turn that model in reverse and say, if you're going to be producing films, for example, looking at the target market in mind, if you have some sort of niche audience, like for us, the easiest audience for us to outreach is the genre film audience, horror films, because we've worked very hard to establish community, and they trust the things that we put out there, and we listen to their suggestions, and therefore we have this very broad network of people. So when we have a new genre film to promote, we know exactly how to do it. People know immediately what's going to be coming down the turnpike. But for indie drama, non-star-driven indie dramas that don't have some sort of target niche, like a gay audience, for example, or social, like a political issue that we can target, it's very, very difficult for us to get an audience through the door because we haven't built that niche audience for those.
You know, I think one of the moments, or not one of the moments, but one of the breakthroughs I had in thinking about the evolving trends in theatrical in the marketplace was actually kind of inspired by my work at South by Southwest, where you would see these films that would be amazingly embraced by the audiences at South by Southwest and other film festivals, and see films play through the roof, get standing ovations, be completely spread through word of mouth at the festival, and then those same films would find their way into the theatrical marketplace in a traditional manner and die. I mean, just completely find no way to recapture that same energy. And I think part of that for me was the idea that, a festival environment is really unique and really special. And, there are ways to maybe take a film, just because you see a film in a movie theater with a bunch of strangers at a film festival and love it, doesn't necessarily mean that the best way to get that film out into the marketplace is in a movie theater with a bunch of strangers. So what we focus on are films that are specifically geared towards that VOD crowd. It's like the way that people, I think, are leaning right now is people are leaning towards a much more, solitary experience watching films. I think it's harder for people to justify going to a movie theater. It's harder to convince people to go to a movie theater. So the onus is on us to try to make that same event experience happen in their own living room.
What I'm also trying to get to is this sort of more philosophical point, which is how is our definition changing? How is our definition of cinema changing when the only way we may be able to see Antichrist, it's available to many more people, which is a good thing, but the only way we may be able to see it is on a small screen. And how is that changing what cinema is?
Well, one thing to keep in mind is that the small screen is not as bad as it used to be. The small is not so small anymore. What's interesting to me each year is how many of the same questions keep coming up again and again and again. And those are the panicky questions about how we make money right now and specific revenue models. But it's interesting that we're still dealing with questions, the essential questions like pay-per-view versus subscription versus. These are ancient questions.
These are, the magazine business had that.
It's the magazine business in 1996. So in the short term, we've got reason to panic and that sort of thing. In the long term, though, I'm a long-term optimist in that as online technology continues to develop, these communities that we're talking about can find each other much more easily. The system becomes more efficient, so that the community that wants to see Antichrist, whether they're seeing it in theaters or on a large screen at home or small, they're finding each other via the auteurs, Facebook, Twitter, or subscribing to IndieWire or whatever. We're finding ways to find each other in a way, and I think ultimately community is kind of the key concept in terms of what's going to take, what will save cinema in the digital era.
Like these new models, like I don't think anyone really knows. I think we're experimenting, and I think for filmmakers here, I mean, you're going to have the option to share your movie in many different ways, and you have to be active and involved. I mean, we work with our filmmakers, and not all of them are always happy, but I think that we try to give them different options, and we're open to working in different ways. But I think that's really key.